Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. Joining live on Radio Sofia, the platform where we discuss and debate on academic and policy relevant issues within and beyond the realms of regular curriculums. We've often discovered and observed the difference between what, say, the policymakers plan, what they end up doing, and what they wish they could have done. And that's where the popular adage, better prevent and prepare than to repent and repair, comes handy. To combat many of these policy uncertainties, we need some policy evaluation. And to evaluate them, we need techniques. To enlighten us on some of these techniques, it's my absolute pleasure and privilege to introduce before you the speaker for today, Dr. Upasak Das. Dr. Das, after completing his PhD from the Indira Gandhi Institute of Development Research, IGIDR, Mumbai, taught at the Center for Development Studies, Trivandrum, courses on impact evaluation, development economics, and mathematical economics. He has worked as a postdoctoral fellow with the University of Pennsylvania on measuring the social networks relevant for and the social drivers behind the behavior related to sanitation and open defecation in Bihar and Tamil Nadu. He's currently working as a presidential fellow in the Economics of Poverty Reduction Global Development Institute at the University of Manchester. Dr. Das, thank you for agreeing to come on our platform as we look forward to an engrossing session ahead. All over to you.
Thank you, Himadri. So before I start, I can just share the screen. So it says that okay.
I think you can do it now.
Yeah. Visible?
Yeah, it's visible.
Okay. Thanks. So thanks, Himadri. So basically, when I spoke with Himadri, so he told me that this this presentation or whatever we call it would be for 45 minutes. So I was thinking on ways through which I can cover the entire evaluation techniques in 45 minutes. So it may not be possible, and so instead I thought is like discussing with you some applications of some of the techniques which are more used, right? So, so there I thought that, okay, let me take advantage of this 45 minutes to discuss with you like these more popularly used techniques rather than the other ones. Okay, so so this is where I began. So this is the title of today's presentation or today's lecture. So when we talk about, let's say, policy issues or let's say like evaluation, so what kind of issues that we think about? So if we consider, let's say, policies on conditional cash transfers. So what are conditional cash transfers? So these are like programs which would give you cash in lieu of some conditions met. So let's say if the woman goes and let's say delivers gives delivery in institutions or in hospitals, then that family is given some cash incentive. Or let's say if a household sends their daughters to school in secondary school, for example, and then this household is given some cash incentive. So these are conditional cash transfers. So it's because like there are a slew of conditional cash transfers across states in India and in other countries as well, including Mexico, Brazil, and let's say South Asian countries as well. So it's important that we measure some of the impacts of these conditional cash transfer program, different indicators of welfare. So let's say taking an example. So if we want to evaluate one of these conditional cash transfer program on women and welfare, the welfare indicator may be health, it may be like education indicators or whatever. So then there might be like problems that you face on evaluation of public works program. So in India, we have this public works program called NREG, National Rural Employment Guarantee Program, some of which I would discuss today as well when I go forward. So let's say one wants to evaluate the impact of these programs on agriculture or non-agricultural wages. So programs of these kind are there in Bangladesh or even in other developing countries as well. and it's important for policymakers as well as policy evaluators to evaluate such programs, right? And then there are, let's say, interventions, localized interventions done in schools, or let's say carried out by the education department in some states, where they give remedial classes to the children. And it's important that you measure the impact of such remedial classes, let's say post-school classes given to the children, on whether these classes have been effective in improving your learning outcomes, right? And then there are other interventions that you can think of, where you think that, okay, awareness of certain kind of things, let's say sanitation, or let's say exclusive breastfeeding, or whatever, any socially desirable behavior. So those awareness on those socially desirable behavior is important, and you design an intervention, and then you want to evaluate the impact of those interventions on the outcome. So one of such example might be like evaluation of an awareness enhancing intervention on women entrepreneurship. So these are kind of problems that we as researchers may actually face. Right. So when we talk about these problems, the first thing that comes to our mind is, like, for any policy evaluator, is the problem of unobservables. Like, let's say if we consider an intervention, and let's say we have data for whatever outcomes that we are trying to evaluate the intervention on. Let's say we have data on those outcomes before the intervention as well as after the intervention. So one might still go ahead and say that, okay, if we just give a difference between what happened after the intervention minus what happened before the intervention, let's say the average value of the outcomes after the intervention minus the average value of outcomes before the intervention, then one can get a sense of what the impact of the intervention has been. But that is problematic because like, there are many other things happening in the economy, happening in the household at very local level, apart from the intervention, can actually have an effect on the outcomes as well, right? So let's say if we are trying to evaluate let's say conditional cash transfer program, and you are trying to evaluate what is the effect of that CCT or conditional cash transfer program on education outcomes, then you would be confounded by the fact that the government has also started other educational interventions apart from this particular intervention, which might actually affect the education outcomes of the children. So you need to actually tease out the exact impact of this particular intervention, and leave aside all the impact coming from other interventions, right? So if we don't do that, then we won't be able to get the exact impact of the exact impact of this particular intervention we are trying to evaluate. So in that case, like, comparison of units before and after the intervention might be problematic, right? And then one may say that, okay, if it's before and after intervention is problematic, then what we can do is we can just compare the intervened areas and the non-intervened areas, and say that, okay, if let's say the outcome of the intervened areas and the non-intervened areas, so if the difference in the outcome is significantly different, then we can say that, okay, intervention might have an effect on whatever outcomes that we are trying to evaluate. But the problem is that then the intervened areas might inherently be different from the non-intervened areas, right? So let's say any pro-poor program would be the possibility of those pro-poor programs are being implemented in poor areas would be higher than those implemented in non-poor areas, right? For example, NREGA, if we talk about, initially when it was passed in the poorest 200 districts of India. So poorest by some standard that the government has set, and it was implemented in the poorest 200 districts of India. So if somebody says that, okay, I will compare what is the effect of NREGA in those poorest 200 districts vis-a-vis those areas where NREGA was not implemented, that would be problematic, because these 200 districts where NREGA was implemented, it might be, so they are likely to be more poor, they're likely to be backward, they're likely to be less educated, which might have an impact on whatever outcomes that we are trying to evaluate in an EGA in terms of. Right, so then comparison, just latent comparison of intervention and non-intervention units might also be problematic. Just one thing. So if you have any problem, you can just stop me in between and ask. So I wouldn't have any problem on that. Okay. So now recognizing that there is a problem between before and after intervention and also intervened and non-intervened units. So one may think, so what can be the way out? Now, when we talk about, let's say government programs. So in all likelihood, government programs would not be implemented randomly. So there is a purposive selection. For example, I gave you the example of NREGA. So initially it was implemented only in the poorest 200 districts of India. So there is a purposive selection to it, right? So, so the problem, so again, like the problem of like comparing these intervened areas and non-intervened areas would be the problem that comes to purposive selection, because the government is selecting only the poorer areas. So latent comparison between the two, intervened and non-intervened areas might be problematic. Now then there are other problems as well. Self-selection bias. So let's say we consider a program, but there is a difference in take-up. So let's say, again, taking the example of this public works program. So let's say the government implemented the public works program, but they said that, okay, it is demand-based. So anybody who needs work would come and ask for work, and those who don't need it, they might not work. Okay, so then there is an element of self-selection. So only those individuals who are less, who are more dynamic, maybe who are more educated, maybe they might come and ask for work, and also they might get the work, in comparison to, let's say, somebody who is not as dynamic as one would want to be, or let's say they are less educated or less aware of the program provisions, they might be left behind. So they might not be able to, let's say, go ahead and ask for work, or they might not know about some of the provisions. That's why they might not go and ask for work. So basically, there is a self-selection bias that can be attached if you compare only the program, only the individuals who have self-selected themselves for the program and who have not. So just in other words, let's say if we compare individuals who have worked on this public works program and individuals who have not worked on this public works program, that might be problematic, because these individuals who have worked might be different, might be inherently different in comparison to the group who have not worked, because this group, which is who have worked, they might be poorer, they might be less educated, or they might be more educated as well. They might be more aware, that's why they have worked. And this group who have not worked, they might be less educated or less aware, or I don't know. So there might be like a number of things that might be different between these two groups, and that's why blatant differencing between these two groups might not give you the true impact of a program, right? So these are the problems that we might have when we just do a simple difference between like intervened and the non-intervened groups. Now, what's the way out? The first way out is like, of course, like you may have heard of this thing, RCTs. So where like interventions are given randomly. So there is no purposive selection attached to it. So basically, it's just, we just take an unit, or let's say we just take a district or village or individual, whatever. We just toss a coin. If it's heads, then the individual or the district would get the intervention. If it's tails, then that particular unit, district or individual, whatever village, would not get the treatment. So there is no inherent conditions that you are attaching before, like selection of that particular individual for, or that particular unit for intervention. Yeah, so everything is random. So in that case, what you can argue is that the group which got the treatment and the group which did not get the treatment might be similar, because the group which got the treatment are randomly selected. So you are not attaching any preconceived notion or preconceived indicators. You are not looking at any pre-program indicators to select these individuals who would be eligible for the treatment. You are just tossing a coin. If it's heads, then they would get treatment. If it's tails, then they would not get treatment. So in that way, since it's random in nature, so we can say that this group which got the treatment and this group which did not get the treatment can be considered similar, right? Himatri, just tell me before, let's say 10 or 5 or 10 minutes before I like in, because I'm not keeping the track of the time.
Yeah,
okay?
sure.
Okay, so so this is the larger argument of randomized trials, and as you can see, there are like in some of these good journals, at least in economics, or let's say some of the so-called good journals, or let's say public health, or in fact even psychology or even political science to some extent. So they have a whole lot of studies coming out on RCTs, right? So and they depend on this thing. So what they argue is that the RCT is the gold standard of evaluation, because you are not basically basing your intervention on any preconceived indicators, right? So so we did an RCT in Telangana sometime back, and very briefly I want to discuss like how we did the how we actually implemented the intervention and what sort of results very briefly we got, and what are the checks and balances that you need to have before, like, you can say that okay, you can just sequencing the intervened units and non-intervened units would give you the program impact or intervention impact, right? So you can have a look at the paper. So this is the link. So this work was on NREG. So as I've been mentioning for some time now, so NREG, I'm sure you will be knowing about this program. So this is the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act. So under this program, every household in rural areas are entitled to get work for 100 days at least at a statutory minimum wage. And the way that this program is implemented is that the individuals have to go and ask for work, and within 15 days, that individual or that household has to be given work. If work is not given, then unemployment allowance has to be given, right? So this is very broadly, these are the provisions of the program. Now, and this program was implemented back in 2005. So over the last few years, or like since the last 15 years since the program was implemented, one of the key areas of concern has been like low awareness of NREGA provisions. So even during the last field visit on NREGA that I did, I found that like not even 50% of the individuals in the area where I visited, not even 50, like it's much less than 50. So not even like 40% of the individuals actually know the provisions of most of the provisions of the program. So they may know that okay, they are eligible to work for 100 days, but definitely they don't know about unemployment allowance, or like what is the prevalent wage rate. That is also something that more often than not they don't know. So low awareness has been like one of the key issues of NREGA provisions, because of which they may end up not asking for work, or they may end up with delayed payments. And of course, they don't receive unemployment allowance because they don't know about these provisions, right? So this is one of the key issues. The other key issue was last mile delay. So so basically what happened is that even if like you receive the wages, so even if the wages come to your post office account, so you have your accounts in post offices. So even if the wages come in your post office account, so the PPM, the postal master, would keep the money with himself or herself, make use of that in her own work, or earn interest, and then give the money back to you after, let's say, 45 days or 2 months. So this is typically the problem of last mile delay, where you receive the wage from the center, but at the very local level, the postmaster actually gives that money for himself or herself, and only give that money after after let's say 30 days or 45 days. So what we found is that the area where we studied this, the average last mile delay was around 37 days, which is like more than one month. And you see this more than 10, like close to 10% of the beneficiaries were found to have an average delay of about more than 150 days, like 5 months. So this is typically a problem, especially when we consider that these individuals are the poorest individuals you can have in the country, and even delay for even 1 day can be like very problematic for them, right? So with this motivation, what we thought that okay, there we can build a treatment first of all, where we can provide some of the messages about some of the indicators, some of the provisions of awareness. And also what we can do is we can refer to like administrative websites or like public data that is available. And let the individuals know about their wages. So once the wages come to their postal account, we will let the individuals know that, okay, your wages have come to your postal account. So what we did is for every village, what we did is we pasted relevant information in the port junctions of the villages. And we also publicized these during broadcast, where and the list that we paste is the list of individuals whose wage have already come to their postal account. So once they know that, okay, my wage have come to the postal account, so what they would do is they would go and put pressure on the postal master to give them the wages, and that might actually reduce the last mile delay. Otherwise, what would have happened is like these individuals do not know whether the wages have been created in their postal accounts or not, and that is an advantage that the postal master often take and keep the money with himself or herself. So this is basically, very broadly, this is what the treatment was all about. Okay, so we did this intervention in the Mahbubnagar district of Telangana in two blocks. So I hope you know that, okay, so within a state there are districts, and within a district there are different development blocks. And within these development blocks are the Gram Panchayats or the villages. Right, so we did the intervention in two blocks. One is Damarigidda block, and the other one is Mahbubnagar block. So these are the two blocks, and within these blocks there are different villages. And this is the Damarigidda block, and this is the Maddur block. The ones in gray, these are the treated villages. Now we selected these villages randomly. So what we did is like we tossed a coin for every village, and if it's heads, it would be intervened, and if it's no, it would be in control GPs. So control GPs are the ones which were not intervened. Okay, so these are the yellow ones are the control GPs, the gray ones are the treatment GPs. So this is in Damarigidda, this is in Maddur. Right, so out of the 22 blocks in Damarigidda, out of the 22 GPs in Gram Panchayats, out of the 22 GPs in Damarigidda block, 12 GPs were selected for intervention, and out of 27 GPs in the Maddur block, 14 GPs were selected for the intervention, and rest 23 GPs from these two blocks are the control GPs. So initially we did so this whole intervention was there for 13 months, from November 2017 to November 2018. And we did a baseline survey just before the intervention, and just after the intervention, we did an inline survey of same households or like same individuals.
I think right? Geeta has a question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi. So when I see that treatment and control GPs, so few of them are really close to each other, and I just
Geeta,
want to know
could
if
you
there is
repeat your question once
being
more?
passed on from some of the GP members of one treatment village to another control village, or vice versa, because that is also some of the yeah. So when I see your treatment and control villages, GPs, terms of the GPs, I was wondering if there is an information flow from the treatment to the control GPs, thereby affecting your information intake as well.
Yeah. So that is a very pertinent question, I would say. And this is typically the problem of spillover. So I thought I would not go to it, but exactly. So that is why you can see that these two blocks being at Koikonda and Hanwara block, and these two are very close to these blocks which were intervened. But what we assumed is that these are far off from one. So since the villages within this Hanwara and Koikonda would be far off from the villages in Damarigirta and Magdu, so the villages in these two blocks would not be like so much affected by the intervention, and the spillover would be much lesser, right? So so that's why in our evaluation we took these two blocks as well, which we think would be unaffected by the spillover effects that we are talking about. Right now in this presentation, since I'm not like exactly presenting the paper, I would not go on the results that we got when we included this, but I appreciate the fact that this is possible. Though what happened is that during our survey, we asked the respondents whether they have shared this information about the intervention with somebody else from other villages or from villages adjacent to your village, and like it's like less than 1% of the respondents said that they have discussed it. We have also in the control village, what we did is we have asked them whether they have heard of any intervention in their adjacent village, and again, like less than 2% said that okay, they have heard of something of that sort. Having said that, we also took like these two blocks just to control for the spillover effects that we're talking about.
Yeah, thank you so much. That clarifies. Yeah.
Oh, thanks. Right. So very briefly. So I'm just right now talking about Damarigirta and Magdu block, not going to Hanwara. So this is the very basic baseline table that you can think that you can consider. So these are some of the variables that we thought might be important, like what is the caste, age, like wage rate, and whether they have a flush toilet or not engaged in agriculture. So these are the mean variable mean of in the control from the control villages, and this is the mean from the treatment villages, right? And then what we can see is that this is like column 5 is the difference between control and treatment. We can see that like none of them apart from age of the respondent is actually significant at 5%. So all of them are statistically insignificant. So which we can say that okay, our randomized allocation of intervention is purely now random, because we don't see any systematic difference propping up between the control and the treated villages. So but apart from that, one can still say that okay, your mean may say this thing, but over the distribution it might be different. So what we did is we also checked the distribution, right? So so as you can see, the dotted lines are the treated and the full lines are the control. Proportion of households belong to the scheduled caste groups. It's like, yeah. So the two distributions pretty much match, right? Yeah, so there are one or two variables where there is some bit of mismatch, but by and large, there is a huge match that you can see. Yeah, so these are the indicators that we consider, and as you can see, there is like for most of the indicators there is a PA. So the two lines actually merge to a larger extent. Right, so this gives us confidence that okay, our treatment and control, the set of treatment and control features are similar in nature, and now whatever difference we will get in the end lines after the intervention is because of the intervention, nothing else. Because pre-intervention we saw that the intervention and control species are quite similar. Now this is the first figure that I wanted to show you. So this is the effect on payment delay. So y-axis gives you the delay, the amount of delay. The black dotted lines are the control, are those coming out from the control GPs, and the gray ones are those coming out from the treatment GPs. And this is the x-axis is the month. So 1 means January 2017. Okay, so similarly 7 means July 2017. So this is the start of the intervention, which is November 2017, and it goes to the second red line that you can see till November 2018. This 24 is December 2018, and then we checked till May 2019. So starting from January 1 to May 2019 is 29. So we track the delay in payments over these months. Now what you can see is that like initially when the intervention started, the two lines, okay, first of all, before the intervention, you can see the two lines, the black and the gray lines kind of merged. After the intervention started, it kind of merged, but after, let's say, around, let's say, July or August 2018, there is a difference that started coming up, right? And these lines are the 95% confidence interval. So as you can see, late during the intervention, there was a huge difference that came up, and this difference was around 25 days, if I remember it correctly. And this difference was seen to be existent or seen to be prevalent even after the intervention. But as you can see, like when we deviated much from the intervention, like much from the end of the intervention, so like if we take April or May, for example, then this difference actually came down. So so just after the intervention, the difference was prevalent, but as we moved away from the intervention ended, the difference came down, but still it was statistically significant, right? So this is what we got on delayed payments. And like whether you have to make multiple trips to the banks for wage withdrawal, this is something the effect that we got is like a significant likelihood of reduction in the number of trips you have to make to the banks or post offices for wage withdrawal because of the intervention. Right, so this is a normal, a very plain regression, very plain probability regression with all the control variables that you can think of, and with the treatment dummy, which takes the value of 1 for treated GPs and takes the value of 1 for all the households from the control GPs, value of 0 for all the households from the control GPs. Right, and then we also seen some of the impacts on awareness indicators. That there as well, we saw that there is a significant impact. So whether you know about unemployment allowance actually increased by around 25 percentage point because of the treatment. Work application, how to apply for work, it increased by 22%. So this is largely the impact we got. Of course, there are other bits and parts of the paper which you can see and refer to the working paper as of now to look at spillover effects and other things as well. But by and large, this is what we got, and this is how we ensured that okay, our randomization exercise was close to like what we wanted. Right. So so this is an example of how you can do a randomization very briefly because I don't have much time. So now what you can think of is like, okay, this is a randomized intervention, but randomized intervention are really costly. You need money to go ahead and intervene. Government by and large won't do it randomly, right? Because there are there might be political backlashes. You give intervention to the village that is adjacent to my village, but you don't give in my village. So there might be political backlashes. So considering political economy, it's difficult for political parties or the policymakers to basically intervene something randomly, right? And then there are ethical considerations as well. So more often than not, you will find these public programs or like the welfare programs which are not implemented randomly, and there you need to have quasi-experimental techniques. Now, one of the early quasi-experimental technique was propensity score matching, which you might have heard, but these days propensity score matching has actually like lost its relevance, and like most of the journals now you see would not by and large would not prefer propensity score matching because of like many problems attached to it. Now, one of the mostly used technique is the difference in difference and also triple difference, which very briefly I thought I will discuss. And again, I'll take reference to one of my working paper that I'm currently working on. And this paper might be not exactly the paper might be relevant, but the program we are evaluating might be important for you because there's something which the West Bengal state government has implemented back in 2013, late 2013, which is the Kanyashri Prakalpa. So as you might have heard, this Kanyashri program is a conditional cash transfer program which gives money to households for sending their daughters to schools. They target females from 13 to 18 years, and they give an annual money of around 1,000 rupees if they send their daughters to school. And at end of 18 years, these families get a lump sum amount of around 25,000 rupees if the daughter is still unmarried. So, the objective of this program is like sending their daughters to school to increase schooling as well as to reduce child marriage, right? So, the paper that I'm going to discuss is like one of the evaluation of this Kanyashri Prakalpa that I did with Professor Prashanjit Sharkal of University of Kalyan. So very briefly, this is the program components which I discussed. Now, if we look at the data, so what I did is I used ASAT data. ASAT data gives you data from like 2004 or 5 till 2018, and it gives you data on learning outcomes as well as enrollment of like a whole lot of children across rural districts in India, across all the rural districts in India. So if we just look at female enrollment in the age group 13 to 16 years, so they give data till 16 years. So if we consider female enrollment in West Bengal, for example, female in the age code 13 to 16 years and track it from 2009 to 18, we can see that there is a definite increasing trend, right? Of course, there is a decline in 2013, but largely, as you can see, there is an increasing trend. And in 2013, Kanyashri was passed. That's why I put a dotted line here. And even after Kanyashri, there is an increasing trend. So before Kanyashri, there was an increasing trend. After Kanyashri, there was an increasing trend. So can you just do a difference between this part after Kanyashri and before Kanyashri and say this is the impact of Kanyashri on female enrollment? No, right? Because you already have an increasing trend before Kanyashri. So it might be problematic. Now, if we consider learning outcomes, for example, ability to read a story. So whether you can read a story is something that they collect data on as well. And there, as you can see, again, like though the trend is not exactly decreasing, but still to some extent it was decreasing before implementation of the Kanyashri. Of course, after implementation, there is a huge decline. But still, you can see that before Kanyashri as well, there was a decreasing trend, right? And even if we consider mathematics, for example, so ability to do a 3/1 division, a simple division, let's say. Again, you can see that if before implementation of Kanyashri, there was a decreasing trend, which carried on after the implementation, but even before there was a decreasing trend. So what it suggests is that if you do a difference between after Kanyashri and before Kanyashri, then it would not give you the true value of the impact of the program that you would want, right? So for this, the first thing that you can do is a double difference. So what you do is you take females from the treated state, which is West Bengal in our case, as treated, and you can consider like some of what we did is consider some of the neighboring states, Assam, Orissa, and Tripura, and took females from these states as control, because these states are the ones who were not exposed to the Kanyashri program. Only West Bengal was exposed, right? And then what we do is before and after comparison, both these groups. So for West Bengal as well, we do it, and for control state as well, we do, and then take the difference. So for West Bengal, WT minus 1, this is the difference in West Bengal. So difference which is coming up in West Bengal and the difference which is coming up in control state, and then we do a difference of the difference. So what it suggests, it would say is that we are taking care of all the other things that are happening in the country through this difference, through the second difference, right? So so before and after in the control state, we take care of all the other things apart from Karnashi that is happening, and then we are taking out that part from the difference that we are getting in West Bengal. So this figure would typically probably make it more clear. So if this is the line for control states and this is the line for West Bengal. So let's say this is T equal to 1 and this is T equal to 0. So this is post Kanyashri, this part is post Kanyashri, this part is pre Kanyashri. So we see that, okay, West Bengal, for West Bengal, any outcome that we can think of, enrollment or learning outcomes, if it has increased from this level to this level, let's say, and for control state it has increased from this level to this level, let's say, the difference between the two would give you the impact, because all the effect of all the other things that are happening is taken care by the control states, and the difference that you would get is the difference of the program, just the program, and everything else is taken care by the difference in the control state. Right, so this is largely the logic of or the reason why we use double difference. But if it is possible that like there are other groups which might be exposed to the changes differently. For example, like male of similar age group are exposed to all the changes in West Bengal and are not eligible for benefits of KP. KP means national program. So let's say in West Bengal, the government has given added impetus to education on a whole and the control states. So these added impetus would help the male students as well. And it also would affect the female students, but the male students in West Bengal, mind it, they are not exposed to KP or they are not exposed to Kanyashri. So it is possible that in West Bengal, there is an added impetus of education on a whole, and that's why the effect might be an overestimate of if we do a double difference, then the effect might be an overestimate, because there are other education impetus or other education interventions that are happening in West Bengal and not happening in the control states, right? So there we do a triple difference, and this figure would make it to some extent clear. So we take only girls and do a double difference first of all, West Bengal and control states, and let's say the difference is del G, and then we take the boys. We again do the difference, do a double difference, and give and annote this difference as del P, and then take the difference of these two differences. Now, what this would do is this would take care of all the additional educational interventions that are happening just in West Bengal and not in the control states. That would affect the boys similarly as the girls. The only difference the girls have is right now is the difference that is coming out because of Kanyashri, because boys in West Bengal are not exposed to Kanyashri, exposed to all the other things that a girl is exposed to, but just not the Kanyashri. So that difference would now give me the true impact of Kanyashri, right? Okay. So with this, if you have any doubt, you can just tell me. I can repeat. So with this strategy in mind, we proceeded to find the impact, or proceeded to evaluate the impact of Kanyashri. So this
Dr.
is
Das, you have 10 minutes.
Okay. Okay. So this is largely the double difference estimate of the different outcome indicators that we thought we would evaluate Kanyashri on. So the first thing is, as I said, female enrollment. The second thing is reading outcome, like whether you can read a story or not. And mathematical outcomes is like whether you can do a 3/1 division. In a regression framework, this can be like taken through an interaction of post. Post means which takes a dummy of 1 if the period is after Kanyashri, post into the treated unit. Treated unit here is West Bengal. So if the individual comes from West Bengal and we take the outcome in post period, post Kanyashri implementation, that individual, that particular variable gets the value of 1 and 0 for all the others. Okay, so we are interacting West Bengal with post, keeping keeping the post variable intact and West Bengal variable intact in the regression. Right. So West Bengal into post gives me in all the specifications that specifications that we consider, and in all the specifications we see that female enrollment actually increased because of Kanyashri, even if we take care of the pre and post, the pre differences as well. Reading outcome and mathematics outcome actually saw a deterioration. Like there can be different reasons for this. We argue that because of the increased enrollment and because of not complementary improvement in some of the school infrastructure, there was a high crowding in the classrooms, and that's why the reading outcomes and the mathematical outcomes decline. But that is a different story, and I won't come to that in this presentation because this presentation is typically on techniques. So what largely our finding is that female enrollment increased and learning outcomes actually deteriorated because of Kanyashri. Now, what are the checks that one should do to ensure? So as you can see, so there is a parallel trend assumption that is attached. So control state increased from this level to this level, and what we are assuming here is West Bengal would have increased from this level to this level, like parallelly to the control state, in absence of the Kanyashri program. So if there was no Kanyashri program, West Bengal would have increased in similar way to the control state. So we are assuming that there is a parallel trend. Now, when we can assume that there would have been a parallel trend, when the historical data, like pre-Kanyashri historical data, shows that there was no clearly systematic difference that is coming out between West Bengal and control states, right? So there can be an inherent difference, but there is no systematical increase or decrease between West Bengal and control states, right? So what we can do is we have to check for parallel trend assumptions. So we take historical data and compare the females from West Bengal and females from control states and see whether there's a distinct systematic trend that is coming up pre-Kanyashri. So we took data for 5 years before implementation of Kanyashri, 2009 to 2013, and we get 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 0 for 2009, 1 for 2010, similarly 4 for 2013, and we see that whether this time trend has a significant this time trend in West Bengal is significant for these outcomes. What we find is that for learning outcomes, reading and mathematics, this trend was not significant, right? So West Bengal into time trend was not significant, but West Bengal into time trend is significant in the female enrollment regression. So we find that even pre-Kanyashri, West Bengal has a significantly increasing female enrollment, even vis-a-vis the control states, right? So this indicates that since even pre-Kanyashri there was an increasing trend, in absence of Kanyashri there would have been an increasing trend. So just a double difference would not actually serve your purpose. So basically this, in absence of the program, this parallel trend would not have been parallel because of the increasing trend pre-Kanyashri, right? So this assumption was did not make satisfied. So what we did is we did a triple difference. So we considered enrollment for the boys as well, and there what we saw is that the parallel trends actually satisfied. So we consider West Bengal into female into triangle. So now we are considering triple difference. So we are taking boys also into this. Of course, the learning outcomes, it was parallel trend assumption was satisfied in TD, double difference regression, even in triple difference regression, it was satisfied. But now female enrollment, for female enrollment, this assumption was not satisfied in the DD regression, but in the triple difference regression, you can see that this difference. So this thing is satisfied. Now it's not systematically different. So the pre-program effects, if you consider boys as well, is not like the trend was not significant in West Bengal. If you consider boys. So with this thing, we can now proceed to the triple difference framework to evaluate the impact of Kanyashi on female enrollment. Right, and this is what we get. So for all this, we consider different specifications. So in one specification, we control for household and child level factors. Also, we control first village control state fixed, year fixed. And now we can see that there is an impact. So there is around like 4.5 percentage point increase in female enrollment because of Kanyashi program that we are very robustly actually observing. So this is how we ended up. Evaluating the effects of this program, right? We discussed RCT to some extent, and we discussed double defense and triple defense, which are both of these are one of the very popular quasi-experimental technique, and especially important when we don't have randomly implemented programs in our hand, and we want to evaluate those programs. So if you have data for pre-program as well as data in post-program and data for control units as well, you can use these double difference and triple difference techniques to evaluate the impact. Now, the last thing that in the next 3 or 4 minutes, the last thing that I wanted to discuss is regression discontinuity, and this is again among the most used quasi-experimental technique for evaluation of programs. Now, for this regression discontinuity, because of the time, I won't be able to discuss any paper, but what I will discuss with you is give a brief overview of what the method is all about. So, an intuition of the method. Now, let's say we have to evaluate an employment policy which is meant for individuals above 25 years of age. Let's say the government actually starts employment policy where they will they will give some skill trainings, let's say, but it's only meant for individuals above 25 years and not below that. And then you are asked to evaluate the impact of this employment policy. Now, one of the ways that you can do it, and this is implemented across India. So you basically do not exactly have a treatment. You have a treatment unit, which is India, but you may not have a comparable control unit, right? So you may consider Bangladesh, for example, or let's say some other countries, for example, which is similar to India, but there are many other things happening. So if you let's say compare India with some other countries, let's say, so there might be many things happening, and because of which you would not be able to tease out the actual impact of the employment policy, right? So basically, the problem here would be that you would not have any control unit, as to say. So what you can do is you can use age as a control. Age as what you can do is you can use individuals in the age code 24 to 25 years as your control, and only consider individuals from 26 to 27 years as your treatment. Now, the larger argument is individuals within this age code 24 to 27 years, they are largely similar. So if we consider a whole lot of individuals, if your sample is like good enough to actually have the minimum detectable effect, so basically what you can largely argue is that individuals from 24 to 27 years largely are similar. They're born and brought up in similar environment. They were exposed to similar government interventions, exposed to similar education policies. So by and large, 24 to 27 years would be similar. The only difference now would be that this group, 26 to 27 years, this individuals in this age group would receive the treatment, and individuals in 24 to 25 years in this age group would not receive the treatment. So these two groups, by and large, is very similar if you think about it. But the only difference is that 26 to 27 years individual, they are exposed to the program, and this group, 24 to 25 years, this group is not exposed to the program. Now, if you see the difference, in outcome of this group and this group, then you can by and large say that this difference gives me the average treatment effect of the employment policy that we have. Right. So just to graphically let you know, so graphically represent this. So this is, let's say, age in years, 24, 25, 26, 27. And for 24 and 25 years, these are the outcome variables, let's say, outcome values of the outcome indicator that we are considering. And for 26 to 27 years, these are the values in outcomes that we are considering. So this is the fitted line for 25 to 24 to 25 years. And this is the fitted line for 26 to 27 years. So the average of this line and the average of this would give me the impact of the program, because by and large, otherwise, individuals in this group as well as this group is similar. The only difference is this group is now exposed to the program, and this 24 to 25 years group is not exposed to the program. So the difference would give me the impact of the program. Right. Similarly, like if you're asked to, let's say, consider a hypothetical program where government gives some education support to those individuals below a threshold income. So if you can perfectly observe the income of an household, let's say if the government says that, okay, this educational support program would only be applicable for households with income below 10,000 rupees. So what you can do is, if the income is perfectly observable, you can consider households from 9,000 to 11,000 rupees. So 9,000 to 10,000 rupees, in households with income level 9,000 to 10,000 rupees would be eligible for this program, but households between 10,000 to 11,000, this group would not be eligible for the program. Otherwise, in absence of the program, you can think that, okay, the households in the income group 9,000 to 11,000 are by and large very similar in nature. The only difference is the fact that households in the income bracket 9,000 to 10,000, they are exposed to the program, and those in the income bracket 10,000 to 11,000 are not exposed to the program. So the difference now would give me the average effect of this education support program. So by and large, this is how you use regression discontinuity, and like you can find many papers coming out in the last 3 or 4 years on different aspects, like different variants of this regression discontinuity, like fuzzy regression discontinuity. But by and large, this is the idea, right? And before concluding, so if you ask me about 3 important readings on this thing, and if you want to get an idea, so I would say this is a book that is like very, very nicely written, and so Mastering Metrics. And this is another book which is like very basic book, gives you broad overview of all the methods that are there. But if you have to ask about one paper that would give you a broad overview of all the methods very distinctly and in a reader-friendly way, is a paper by Martin Ravelian, which came out in World Bank Economic Review. So this is the paper, Mystery of Vanishing Impact. So the best thing about the paper is it starts with a story, and it discusses all the methods in form of a story, where there is an RA and she's given a work on evaluating a World Bank project, and then she starts thinking about different applications. So this is, if you have to ask me about one paper, so this is the paper I would recommend to all. So thank you. I think I'm in time.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Das. I think I mean, it's always a difficult job to complete so many techniques in such a short span of time, and I think you've done a wonderful job on that. So the floor is open for questions if people have any. Is there anyone who wants to ask a question? I don't see questions right now.
So what I want is like, yes, if you develop questions, you can just mail me as well, and I will try to respond as well.
I think Geeta has a question. Yeah, Geeta, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, hi. I actually work with UNICEF Hyderabad as a consultant, and we are kind of looking at a new program for implementation. Though we are not kind of very specifically interested in this sort of impact evaluation, being a public policy person myself, I want to kind of carry out an impact evaluation as well from the beginning of the program to, it's an 18-month project that we are planning to do. So in this context, is it okay if I contact you at a personal level to kind of discuss some of the methods and methodologies that we were planning to conduct on the program?
Yeah. So I think you have my mail ID, or else like you can just write upasak.das@manchester.ac.in.
Can it please be typed on the chat box?
Yeah, I can type. I think.
Yeah. Also, I wanted to appreciate your session. Thank you so much. It was quite informative.
Yeah, I think the mail ID is here. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I think with this, we come to the end of the session. Thank you, Dr. Das, for sparing your valuable time. We look forward to having you in campus whenever the COVID thing recedes.
Yeah. Wish you like good luck, as well as like I wish you good health as well.
Thank you. Same to you. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye. Thanks everyone for joining.
Thanks.